Let me tell you a crazy story that might just make you think twice before eating pork again. A woman shows up at the emergency room complaining of pain and weakness in her legs. Nothing unusual at first, until the doctors take a scan. What they see is absolutely wild. Her muscles are filled with tiny white cysts. Turns out she had eaten raw pork a while back and now she's infested with parasites. Not just in her stomach, but literally spread through her muscle tissue. Let's use this video to break down this crazy case and talk about foodborne parasites, how you get them, and what can be done to get rid of them. Okay, so here's a bit of backstory. The scan was shared by an emergency doctor at the University of Florida in Jacksonville and shows a patient's legs filled with tiny white specks. Obviously, these aren't just random spots, they're parasites, and the larvae had made their way into the woman's muscle tissue. The patient had been diagnosed with cysticercosis, which is a serious parasitic infection caused by a specific type of tapeworm. This kind of infection usually starts when someone eats raw or undercooked pork that contains the parasite's eggs. Once inside the body, the larvae don't just hang out in the digestive system, they can actually break through the gut wall, get into the bloodstream, and then travel to other parts of the body, like muscles, skin, or even the brain. Pretty much the stuff that you would see in a horror movie. When the parasites settle in the muscles, they will cause symptoms like pain, swelling, or even little lumps under the skin. But it gets way more serious if they end up in your central nervous system. If they reach the brain, it's called neurocysticercosis and can lead to seizures, headaches, confusion, and in some cases even permanent brain damage or death. Now, even though such extreme cases are very rare in the developed world, they're not rare at all if you look at global figures. In fact, around 50 million people around the world are infected with cysticercosis every year. Out of those, around 50,000 people die annually because of it, usually from complications and a lack of medical treatment. This then brings me to how to treat such cases. It really depends on how far the infection has spread and how badly it's affecting the person. Doctors will usually start with anti-parasitic medications to kill off the larvae and then sometimes add steroids to reduce inflammation, especially if the brain is involved. In very extreme cases where the cysts cause serious pressure or damage, surgery might be needed to remove them. So obviously go to the hospital or see a specialist if you find yourself in such a situation. Later on in the video, I will also talk about how to naturally get rid of parasites, but that obviously only applies to smaller versions that aren't affecting the nervous system. What's most shocking about this whole situation is that it could have been prevented with a fairly simple step: to properly cook your pork. Just because your meat looks done on the outside doesn't mean it's safe to eat. That's also the reason these parasites are especially common in places with poor sanitation or where undercooked pork is part of the local cuisine. The problem is that the eggs are microscopic. You can't see them, you can't smell them, or taste them really. Also, because the larvae can form cysts, they can sit in your body quietly for years and will only start causing serious problems if they grow or rupture. That's why a lot of people who get infected don't even realize it until things get bad. There was another similar case floating around on the internet a while ago where a Chinese man was diagnosed with more than 700 tapeworm cysts throughout his whole body, also including his brain. He had eaten hot pot made with undercooked pork and started experiencing seizures and memory loss. His scans also looked like something out of a horror movie. So yes, while it might seem rare, this is absolutely real and it's more common than we would like to believe. It's also the reason why some cultures, like certain branches of Judaism or Islam, forbid eating pork. Obviously, there's always also a religious aspect here, but these traditions usually formed because of practical health reasons behind them. Back in the day, without refrigeration or proper cooking methods, pork was one of the most dangerous meats that you could eat. So even back then, it was notorious for carrying parasites and diseases. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that you should never eat pork, just that you have to be smart about it. Always cook it thoroughly, and if you're eating pork in another country, especially in rural areas, be extra cautious. Great, now to the lifestyle section of this video. How can you naturally improve your resistance to parasites and get rid of them faster. Again, in such severe cases, you will need medical attention. But what many people don't realize is that many of us carry some parasites without even knowing it, because they either don't cause any symptoms or it's something unspecific like bloating, stomach upset, or headaches. I have a video on how to naturally eliminate parasites that you should definitely check out if this interests you. The cliff notes are basically that you want to work on two things: your stomach acid levels and your bile flow. Let's start with stomach acid. It's one of your body's first lines of defense against parasites because when you eat something that might be contaminated, like undercooked meat or unwashed produce, the acidic stomach environment helps kill off harmful organisms before they reach your intestines. It's basically your internal sanitizer. The acid breaks down proteins and destroys the protective outer layer of many parasites, making it much harder for them to survive. If your stomach acid is too weak, though, parasites can slip through and start causing trouble further down in your gut. Things like stress, a diet high in processed foods, or even some medications can lower your stomach acid levels and make you more vulnerable. In terms of nutrients, the most important ones are zinc, B vitamins, especially B1 and B6, and chloride. Zinc and B vitamins are depleted by stress and are especially low in processed foods, and this creates a vicious cycle. Because if you lack the nutrients necessary to produce hydrochloric acid, your body will be less able to properly digest food, which in turn leads to more nutrient deficiencies. This is also explained in more detail in a different video. Next, when it comes to bile flow, bile acts as a natural antimicrobial agent in your digestive system. Produced by the liver and stored in the gallbladder, it helps break down fats in the foods that you eat, but it also has the ability to disrupt and kill harmful organisms like parasites. When bile flow is sluggish, parasites have an easier time surviving and attaching to the walls of your intestines. On the other hand, a strong and steady flow of bile creates an environment that parasites don't really like and cannot thrive in. On top of that, bile helps you eliminate biotoxins that parasites create when living inside of you. These will be picked up by your liver for detoxification, but to eliminate them together with your stool, your liver needs bile. So bile flow helps your body carry these toxins out quickly and also reduces the inflammation caused by them. To boost bile, you want to make sure you have enough cholesterol, taurine, and choline in your diet. These nutrients are needed to form it in your liver, and cholesterol and taurine are found mostly in animal foods. So vegetarians and vegans are at a disadvantage here and might want to consider supplementing. Of course, there are also other more direct bile supplements like ox bile, bile salts, or TUDCA, which can help increase your levels. On top of improving your GI tract through more stomach acid and improved bile flow, there are a few other things that you can do if you want to strengthen your natural ability to get rid of parasites. One would be to increase your intake of alkaline reserve minerals like magnesium, calcium, sodium, and potassium, which help buffer excess acidity in your tissue. Parasites love acidic environments, so one way to make your body less hospitable to them is to make sure your acid-alkaline balance isn't completely skewed. And then you can also think of using a sauna. The hot environment boosts circulation, improves lymphatic drainage, and mimics a low-grade fever, which parasites don't like because many of them thrive at normal body temperature. And lastly, there are also some specific foods that have natural antiparasitic properties. 3 of the most commonly known are garlic, which contains allicin, which kills parasites and boosts immunity. It also stimulates liver enzymes. Papaya seeds, which contain enzymes that break down parasites' outer layer and are especially helpful against worms. And pumpkin seeds, which have a compound that paralyzes parasites and help flush them out during bowel movements. The bottom line is that parasites are a lot more common than people think, and they're not just something that you find in developing countries, even though there are more common there. But with the right habits, good hygiene, and smart nutrition, you can reduce your risk a lot. So make sure to properly cook your meat and support your internal defense systems. Because in the end, the best way to deal with parasites is to make sure they never feel welcome in the first place.